Perfectionism, once we reach it, it's the end. Once you're perfect, it's done, whatever it is. The only other thing that is done is when we die. So perfectionism is like a death. And therefore, being addicted to perfectionism is really like being addicted to death.
Josh Piterman, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me on, mate. Thank you.
My pleasure. So I want to get started by saying, Josh, your achievements read like a performer's dream. Seriously. There's a big going on. West Side Story, Cats, Hairspray, Beautiful, Carole King musical, Phantom in the Phantom of the Opera, Les Misérables. Did I say that right?
Les Misérables, yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Les Misérables, yeah.
The list goes on.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to 2 points in your story. 2006, when you graduated with a Bachelor of Arts, you were bright-eyed, bushy-tailed performer with a dream, right?
Yeah.
And how you turn that into a career that we see today, so that ideally somebody listening who's at the beginning of that journey can understand a playbook and receive similar, and achieve similar goals. And then we'll explore the second piece later.
Yeah, cool. And I want to say that playbook isn't just applicable to the niche of musical theatre. I think it's to anyone who wants to achieve or to really succeed in whatever career path that they put out there. I mean, it's a very niche career path, musical theatre, and not all career paths are a niche, but I do think the roadmap for success is similar across paths.
Yeah, the consistency.
And from working as a coach, sort of in the work I do now around mindset and high performance and spirituality and whatever, I see the commonalities across the board. Yeah, whether it's athletes or corporates or other artists or, Joe Blow working at the milk bar, like there's so many similarities.
Yeah. And you can reapply
It's all about the human condition.
Yeah, definitely. And you can reapply them to the next stage of your life, which it seems like you're now currently doing.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's start from the start. So 2006.
Yeah. So it's funny, just as we were about to graduate, Phantom of the Opera was coming to Australia, starring Anthony Warlow, who is, one of the most famous Australian musical theatre performers, Golden Voice. And so I, as a non-graduate yet, auditioned for the role of Raoul, who's like the romantic interest in the show. And it got down to the last four for the role. None of us got it, actually. It went to someone who'd played the role before. And so it was a really good sort of experience of a close call. It was also really good to go, hey, I've just graduated and I'm up against guys who are young, ingenue, romantic lead types who maybe have graduated 3, 4, 5 years before me, 6 years even, and at different academies. They were all Whopper Academy, Western Australian Academy of Performing Arts, which was like the better school, the one that Hugh Jackman went to. And I'm up in the mix with these guys.
Yeah.
That was affirming.
Yeah.
So already to not see it as a rejection, but see it as a step forward.
Sure.
Yeah. So that was the first thing I sort of auditioned for and didn't get it, but it began a long relationship with Phantom.
Yeah, cool.
So yeah, that's how it started. I never even then questioned whether or not I was going to have a career in this.
Really? So what made you want to do the studies to begin with?
I got into musicals late at high school, fell in love with them, did Fame and then Jesus Christ Superstar in year 12. From year 11 to year 12, changed my subjects to be more arts-based because I just fell in love with it in year 11. I knew that this is what I wanted to pursue in some way, much to the dismay of my father. Yeah. My mum was really supportive of it. She was an actor in the 80s or tried to be and did some amateur stuff and a film and had a bit of a modelling career. And so bright lights, I think, appealed to her, but also she's just a really supportive mother in that sense. She just wanted to go for it. My dad was a little bit more private school education,
what a waste.
All that sort of stuff. And it took him a couple of years of seeing me do stuff at uni to go, I think you'll be okay. And so, I never had thoughts about this isn't going to work. And I had other graduates from the same academy as me speak to me and say, it's so hard out there, you're not going to get any work. And I always saw that as their story.
Yeah.
I never applied that to my story. I never went, because we're all on our own path, you know, and you can only, like, really, the path is pathless. No one can say that this is the way your path will go.
Yeah.
That's that great Ralph Waldo Emerson quote, do not follow the trail, go instead where there is no, do not follow the path, go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. Mm-hmm. And I really, that was my year 12 leavers quote at high school. And I really applied that. I was like, I'm going to just create my own path, taking on things of much wiser people. Like 21, I was reading The Secret, you know, or Khalil Gibran, or The Prophet, or I was into this sort of, that I don't know everything. I'm not wise. There are really wise people out there. They're not necessarily the graduates who've graduated a couple of years before me who aren't in work. That's not who I'm going to listen to, because their self-limiting beliefs and their conditioning, they're just throwing darts at that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just projecting that towards me. That's their journey.
Yeah.
So I never felt like that. I never felt like I didn't know the extent. Like, my dreams were to play Jean Valjean and Les Misérables and to play the Phantom of the Opera. I didn't necessarily think I was going to get there, but it was like, let's go for it.
Yeah.
You know? And it cost me the same amount of energy to dream for the biggest thing as it did to dream for something else. Like the dream itself, conjuring up the idea, cost the same amount of energy in that moment. For anyone, stepping onto the path, that's where you get the cost.
Yeah.
You know, because that's where you have to work your ass off. That's where sacrifice comes in. And that's the price you pay. So I didn't realize that.
What was the path? Like, from what I can gather? It was
churning it out. It was grafting and crafting and hustling.
So 4 years between 2006 and
2010.
West Side Story.
Yeah,
was
so the first thing I did was take a long contract. I went to Japan, Tokyo Disney, did a 30-minute show 3 to 5 times a day.
Just put in the reps.
Get in the reps. I'd never done repetition.
Yeah.
At uni, the most amount of shows probably did was about 8 or 10. We did that in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, just do repetition, because if you can't do repetition, you can't do musical theatre.
Yeah.
You know, it's 8 shows a week. Yeah, so doing 20 a week at Tokyo Disney.
Was that like a strategic thing that somebody told you, or just felt intuitive?
No, it felt intuitive.
Okay.
That I wanted to live away. I wanted to know what that felt like, and I struggled with that. I actually left the contract early. I got really sick, but I created the sickness. I manifested that sickness.
Okay.
I wasn't happy there. I wasn't having a great time after about 8 or 9 months. And I know that I anything I could possibly do to get out of there.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was struggling with all sorts of my own demons, my own stuff, which we'll go into. And so it taught me a lot, though. It taught me a hell of a lot. It taught me about people and dynamics and relationships and striving to be better, being out of my comfort zone. It was a show that was more jazzy, and wasn't a jazz singer. I couldn't do jazz then. Didn't really understand that. That's not what I played in. So I was really out of my comfort zone. A lot of jealousy as well, and some unkind people, and yeah, I mean, it was a really tough 9 months. Yeah, and then after that, I joined a group called the 10 Tenors, which is quite a well-known Australian sort of operatic group, and had a great time there. Met some of my best mates, who are still my best mates. Toured the world for the best part of 2 years. But during that,
did that opportunity come off like a referral, or you just applied?
I just applied. There was a thing on the website, if you think you've got what it takes to be one of the 10 Tenors, send us through your stuff. And so I sent them a version of me singing Maria from West Side Story, which is quite fitting, which I'll explain in a sec. So did that. Halfway through the contract, I saw that they were re-looking for understudies for Raoul and Phantom of the Opera. The same tour was still going on. So I said, hey, can I put a video audition down? They're like, yeah, it'd be a great opportunity, blah, blah, blah. Put down the video audition. I don't think they thought much would come of it. Next minute, they're flying me over from one side of Germany into another side of Germany, then onto Copenhagen to meet the director. I did subsequent auditions. 2 days later, find out I got the gig. 10 Tenors don't let me out of the contract. They upheld the contract. So there is like part 2 of my relationship with Phantom. And so I stayed on till the end, but ultimately when I knew West Side Story was coming to Australia, I'm like, that's a role for me, Tony. That is a young 20s, Barry Tenor role. This sort of look, this sort of style of acting. I'm not going to be able to get out of this contract. I have to leave this group and give that a crack. And so I did. And intuitively, I knew that that was the path for me, that I had to do that. And it was safe work, but safe isn't necessarily brave. In fact, often it's not. You've got to get a bit uncomfortable to be brave. And so uncomfortable for me was not earning any money, and so for a few months there, I didn't earn, and that's in hindsight, what's a few months? But when you're in it, you're like, and then got that gig, and subsequently, after I found out, well, in the process of that auditions, I did a show with the other 3 guys who didn't get into Phantom the first time around. We became really close friends. And we put on our own concert at a little venue in Melbourne called Chapel of Chapel.
Oh, nice.
And Geoffrey Rush was in the audience one night. And he handpicked 2 of us to be in a show with him at the MTC.
Oh, wow.
So that time that
were you one of the 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
I filled the gap between 10 Tenors and starting West Side Story with this show at the MTC based on our hustle. Yeah. Based on going, let's create our own work. Let's put something together. Let's make things happen. And so I think that's a huge thing for young artists or young entrepreneurs.
Creatives.
Creatives. Create your work.
Yeah.
Even if it's not your best work.
Yeah.
Just that's that thing of keep moving forward. Keep stepping onto the path. As you walk along the way appears. That's that Rumi quote. That it just does. You just got to keep moving. And then, there'll be obstacles. Quote to quote, but like that's another Marcus Aurelius, like, the impediment to action creates action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Yeah. The obstacle is the way. Yeah. Like, and there's a great Ryan Holiday book about that. So, like, you go, it's not that. Well, it's not staying in the group of 10 tenors. Let's try this, and then boom, boom, and then you move around that obstacle. Yeah. The obstacle. I love being in the 10 tenors, but it became an obstacle too. Yeah. To moving to pressing forward to where I want to go. Cool. And so then West Side Story happened, and I was sort of on my way. I'd played my first lead role, which was 15 years ago. Yeah. And cool. And things changed from there.
Yeah. So basically, I'm piecing out a couple of lessons here, and before we move on to the next part, the first one is do the reps.
Do the reps.
Find a place where you can just put the reps in. Yeah. Even if it's not the most glamorous, if it's not exactly what you want. At the early stages of any career or any creative endeavor, just get reps in.
Yep. 10,000 hours to become an overnight success. Like just do the hours. And then that's the diligence. That's the hard work. That's the unglamorous part. That's the everyone's out at the pub, practice your scales. Yeah. Your mates are out for drinks and you go, you know what, you listen to yourself and go, I really know I need to get this piece of work out. I listen to myself. I really need to be with my mates tonight. Spend that time.
So trust your gut.
Trust your gut. Get out. There's enough going on cerebrally for all of us in this society. Yeah. And we can intellectualize and academicize till the cows come home. But there is a knowing beyond that knowing, a wisdom that's innate to all of us. And if we really tune in to our deeper parts of ourselves, we go in any moment for anything, whether it's big or small, drinks with the mates or working here. Do I take that contract? Do I take that lease on that property? Do I big things, small things? There is a knowing within all of us.
So the other part is, before we move on, I really want to dig into this because it's quite important. So trust your gut. Now, how do you begin to being able to listen to your gut in this specific setting of career advancement?
Yeah, I think if you want to trust your intuition work, there is a voice inside of us. Yeah. Sometimes we can't hear that voice. Why? Sometimes it's screaming very, very loudly and we can't hear it because the voice between our ears is so loud. Yeah. Yeah. And then sometimes if we listen, if we quieten down the mind a bit, so whether that's some breath work, meditation, being diligent with that practice too. It's not like I meditated once for 20 minutes, I didn't hear the voice. It's a practice that you need to practice.
It's like a gym membership. You're putting in reps every day.
Put that gym membership into your mind. and soul. Like meditation is a drawbridge back to your deepest self. Yeah, it's a relationship with the truest nature within you. So it takes time to cultivate that. So put in those reps too. Sometimes when we hear that voice inside of us, it's actually like, whose voice is it?
Well, yeah.
Is it like the old teacher? Is it your mum? Is it your dad? So really listen out to who are you hearing?
The voice in your head, or
the voice in your head? Yeah. Go, oh no, Joshua, go do it this way. I'm like, hi mum. So, and I can hear my grade 2 teacher.
Yeah.
I can hear all these different voices.
Yeah.
Grade 3. There is a point where you go, no, there's the knowing voice.
What is the difference between the two? If you could, like, it's hard to, I know what you're talking about, and I know intuitively, but somebody listening that hasn't got to this point in their like journey in this space, like, is there a way for you to succinctly explain the difference between the two and like how you might feel in your body?
Yeah, it feels like a cathartic release that's already manifested in that moment about what you're thinking about in the future. So when you hear that voice and it's like, yes, you feel the release already in your body.
Yeah.
It's like, yes.
That makes sense.
Yes, I do need to call that person and tell them that I can't see you anymore.
Yeah.
Or I do need to call that person and send them some love because I'm feeling intuitively that something's not right for them.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, like we are energy manifested in form.
Yeah.
And so we've got to listen to that energetic part of ourselves.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah. I understand. And I know that feeling.
We all know that feeling.
Yeah.
We all know that feeling, whether we're not, and I know I've got lots of mates who are super cerebral, really businessy guys, but they make emotional decisions based on intuition. They might not even be aware of it. They just go, oh, that felt right.
Yeah.
Or they'll use that, oh, I know in my heart that's right. You know in your heart that that's right. Even that expression is speaking to somewhere beyond your mind. It's speaking to your heart, to your intuitive self. It's speaking to pathos. It's speaking to feeling, Yeah. So these cliches that we've created in the English language aren't there just because words sound good. They're there because they've been felt and experienced by millions, billions of people across millennia.
Yeah, it's the same human experience for sure. Yeah.
We haven't evolved that much.
No, not at all. And the third piece that we have there is do your own work. So create your own art, create your own projects. Just go out and rustle some feathers and make shit happen. And you'd be surprised on what comes out of it. And the things that come out of it are generally not what you would expect.
Totally. And make mistakes.
And you get better. You get better at your craft every time you try and make a new short film or film something and put it up on like an audition or make a short form clip, whatever it is.
Whatever it is, your social media content, you're this, you're that, or anything, just like give it a crack.
Yeah.
Have a crack and you'll soon work out all your stuff. You know? You work out your failings, you work out where your insecurities are with it. And that's where you start doing the work on you to make your stuff better.
Yeah.
Give it a crack.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, failure is something that we struggle with a lot.
Yeah. Because
we live in a society that is obsessed with perfectionism. So I think a lot of people struggle with failure or risking failure because of a subconscious desire for perfectionism. And I think that's a part of what's in our culture at the moment. Looking perfect, being perfect, having more, getting more.
Yeah.
That's when I'm enough, when I'm perfect. So it builds imposter syndrome, perfectionism, because our idea of where we think we need to be is so far away from where we currently are. Yeah. But perfectionism, I had a great episode of my podcast where my two coaches came on. Mm-hmm. One's Ben Crow, who's a mindset coach, and one's Asher Packman, who's a former president of Meditation Australia. Some of what I talked about with regards to, what meditation is, really quoting Asher. Mm-hmm. But we talked about the addiction to perfectionism. Now, perfectionism once we reach it, it's the end. Once you're perfect, it's done. Whatever it is. Once you've got perfect, that's done. The only other thing that is done, what's done when it's done, is when we die, right? So perfectionism is like a death. And therefore, I should say that being addicted to perfectionism is really like being addicted to death.
It's kind of heavy, isn't it?
It's really heavy, but it's really true.
Yeah.
That you are so hungry to get to something
To the end.
that has ended. And really, therefore, we have to embrace failure and embrace imperfections and know that we're winging it and know that not everyone's got it sorted. No one's got it fucking all sorted.
Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah.
But when we celebrate that stuff, we go, I actually get out on stage now and love to play with my imperfections. Try shit that I don't normally try.
Yeah.
And don't care, I was a bit pitchy there, or I missed that little thing, but I gave something a crack that I wouldn't normally. Maybe I'll go for an optional high note, or just try it, because how the hell am I going to know if I'm going to expand if I don't risk failing?
Yeah.
And failure is really just, first attempt in learning. It's failure is where you get all your lessons.
So if somebody, on this note of failure, and specifically for like auditions and all these sort of things, it's quite relevant.
Yeah.
So how do you create the mindset of being able to accept and embrace those failures?
Yeah. That when it comes to auditions, our sense of failure is not the panel sense of failure. Our sense of failure as artists is often, I didn't get the gig. Yeah. So rejection, I'm not a pro on many things, but I am definitely an absolute pro on rejection, because just in the biz is you become professional at getting rejected.
Yeah.
So sure. And I apply it to dating and stuff now to give it a crack.
Yeah.
They weren't interested in me. Because I know that rejection is a doorway to acceptance. The more you're rejected, the closer you are to where you can be accepted or will be accepted. So by not playing in the game of rejection, you're actually risking not finding your tribe, not finding that job, not finding that thing that lights you up.
Yeah.
So it's where fear gets in the way of love. Acceptance is a derivative of love, and rejection is a derivative of fear.
So what are some specific techniques that you've used to get from that space of fear to love in
auditions?
Well, you can use auditions as it's a reasonable example.
Or in regards to rejection?
Regards to rejection, and you can apply it to whatever. Rejection that is like fear-based rejection versus just acceptance and embracing the next step on the pillar towards wherever you're going.
So it's really, for me, has been about knowing what I am in control of in that space, in that audition space, or in that date, or in that whatever it is where you risk rejection.
Yeah.
And so I've talked about a little bit in our short sizzle, but I created these P's around it because they've been really helpful in teaching other people about it. So the first one is preparation, do your homework, really do your hours, whatever it is that you're working at, do your hours. Even when it comes to that, in relationship settings, you're going to see someone, and let's say, you've met, you're on socials together, don't just stalk and check out whether they're hot, stalk and learn, really learn about them. Read their captions, engage in who they are.
Yeah.
Be curious, So that's preparation. Presence, I know in an audition, it's so easy. We all get caught in this trap to go, I'm thinking about where I was or where I want to be. I can be in an audition. I've been in auditions thinking about the callback. I'm reading it going, I hope they like this. I hope I get a callback. I'm not in the work.
Yeah.
Be here now. It's the aliveness of any moment can only ever be happening in the moment.
Yeah.
And we get caught in the trap of God, I've been in so many times. I've been in audition going, God, I sung this better in the shower this morning.
Yeah, yeah.
And like literally mid phrase, thinking about that, and then I'm thinking about, did I wash my underarms? Did I? Like, and I'm thinking about whether I smell, whether I put deodorant on, all this
unrelated stuff.
And I'm not in the middle of a song, but all these thoughts come into your head. Are they liking it? Do they like? I wonder if they're like. I wonder if I'm tall enough. I wonder if do they want a brunette? Am I like all these things that are like so out of my control? Even whether or not I put deodorant on is out of my control.
Yeah.
So presence, purpose.
Yeah.
Why are you there?
Yeah.
What intrinsic intention do you have for being there?
Yeah.
And is it to get famous?
Yeah.
Is it to get a job? Is it for security? Is it like, these are all fear-based things.
Yeah.
If your intention is, if your purpose is something that comes from us, but it's not about us. Mm-hmm. It's how we serve the world. Mm-hmm. So if your purpose there, you know what, this piece really speaks to me, and I feel so excited by the potentiality of sharing this with 1,500 people every night, because I deeply believe that it will affect them. Mm-hmm. That's loving.
Yeah.
So that's where we bring love rather than fear. Passion, bring everything you have to it. Like, give all of your stuff to it. Always love with that. But you can get caught in desire with passion, which can be fear-based. So if it's about receiving and not about giving, receiving is like, fill me up, fill me up, fill me up. Ego, ego, ego.
Yeah.
Fear, fear, fear. Giving is love, 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 love. Play. And I think this is where we get caught up a lot. There's been a fair bit of research into play of late that states that play deprivation offers up similar stimulus or lack of stimulus or results as sleep deprivation.
Interesting.
So a lack of play in our lives.
So what can play look like?
Well, just quickly, for pulling that thread, a lack of play can make us exhausted. It can make us unmotivated. It can make us moody, stressed, anxious. So play is anything that we're bringing curiosity to, our creativity to, our imagination to, our sense of adventure to, risking failure to, because we always risk failure in play. Pull out the Monopoly board, I'm risking losing against you. So they're the things. So being an explorer in it, gamifying the situation. When we don't do that, we become very attached to the result of it. And we become very attached to our self-worth being governed by the result of it. And so play actually evokes non-attachment. It helps with the idea of non-attachment. It says, I'm playing in this, but I am not defined by this.
Yeah.
Who I am, my worth, my enoughness isn't defined by the result of this. So play is, for me, the most important part of this, because it's the part that we struggle most with in society. Yeah. We're so concerned with getting it right, we miss the opportunity to explore it.
I quite like that, because I'm just thinking back as a kid, you're playing dress up, you're playing shopkeeper, you're playing all of these different things.
You're playing footy in the backyard.
And you're not like, it's not that deep. It's not that serious.
It's not that deep.
But you're learning a lot in that process.
Oh my God. So much play. Even the play where you're kicking a footy with yourself in the backyard and Piterman gets up, he takes a specky, siren goes and you're down by 5 points. And all this imagination, all this creativity that is innate within all of us. Every footy-obsessed kid, whether it's a balloon in the hallway or a little mini Sharon in the backyard, has played out kicking the goal after the siren to win the premiership. And this is all a part of the exploration of stuff. If you can bring that into your work, into that job interview, into that audition, into that meeting or whatever, it's game changing. And then the final one is patience or persistence of going, you know what? I was present, I was prepared, I was passionate, purposeful, and playful, and the panel still wanted a 5'9" blonde guy, and I'm 6 foot and brunette, and I can do nothing about that. Yeah. Yeah. And just knowing what your power is and what your power isn't. And that the power to make the decision on who gets the role or who gets the job or the promotion or whatever is not in your hands.
Yeah.
So don't even bother spending time wasted
Yeah.
on that. Bryan Cranston talks about this, who's a great actor that people might know from Breaking Bad and Malcolm in the Middle. Don't waste your time putting your energy into the shit that is not in your control.
Yeah.
It's just wasted.
Yeah. Great.
So that's been huge. And that's, I feel like when I evoke those 6 Ps, because I stuff it up all the time. I only created this because I stuff it up.
Yeah, for sure.
I know I'm leading with love and non-attachment.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for sharing. That was a lot.
I know it's a lot.
No, it's good. It's a lot of like frameworks for people to understand and hopefully have better outcomes. Yeah. So the next thing I wanted to jump into was you have gone into Tony, West Side Story. So you've moved to London. Is that kind of the timeline, just to make sure?
Yeah. So I mentioned that I did a show that lasted for 6 weeks, Officer and a Gentleman.
Yeah.
And it was a time when I was married.
Yeah.
And my wife at the time, I was offered to do West Side Story around the world for almost 2 years. And I don't think we're having a great time in the marriage. And I think my wife at the time felt like that'd probably end us. And she's probably right.
Yeah.
And so I had this 2-year contract playing Tony and West Side Story around the world, or this bit part in a new musical in Sydney. I chose the bit part because I wanted to keep the marriage alive. It died after 6 weeks. And I just went, stuff it. I've got to pursue my career. I can't be shackled here. And so I got on a plane, and I mean, she was so angry, I remember, and went over to London and was like, I'm going to give this a crack. I had a European passport, it's pre-Brexit, and gave it a crack. And within 6 weeks, this is 2012.
Yeah.
Within about 6 weeks, I landed a role in a UK tour of Hairspray.
Nice.
And I was like, great, cool.
So that takes me on to the next bit. So you've gone from 2006 to 2010. You put in the work.
Yep.
2000.
Putting in the work.
Yeah. Sorry. You've been putting the work since before you started uni.
Yeah. It's probably from about 2002. I reckon I was
really working on it. So 2006 you finish school. 2010 you get your first like really big part.
Yep.
2012 you get another big part and you've moved to another continent. 2013 you end up with panic attacks, burnout, and you almost quit everything. So
I did.
You did. Okay, so you did. So 2013,
temporarily.
You quit everything. Yet this is well before 2019 when you become Phantom of the Opera.
Totally.
So between those points, A, what happened?
Yep.
B, what were you thinking in that time? And C, what would you recommend to somebody potentially feeling these concerning feelings in whatever industry they're doing? You know, we can focus on performing arts because it's what you know best, but I think it's applicable to everything.
It's applicable to everything. So I'm on stage doing Hairspray, and there's a lot of, and I was very in my head. I mean, even doing West Side Story, I was highly anxious. Before every show, I was on the toilet. I was literally like, my guts were spilling.
Damn.
And I was not panicking, but just highly anxious. Highly anxious. So caught up in my head and had no sense of being able or conscious or aware enough to cultivate like a relationship with feeling and intuition. Like when it happened, it was just happened. I didn't know how to actually dance in that dance.
Yeah.
Or, you know.
What were you afraid of at the time? Do you know?
Well, yeah, a burning fear of public failure. So that's why I can have this relationship with failure now. I can only talk about this stuff because it's lived experience for me. I had to work through it. And I was having panic attacks and stuff once I hit Hairspray. So I had this moment where I got out on stage, and Corny Collins was the role I played. He is the DJ or the host of the TV show. So he has a lot of chats to camera, which aren't camera, it's just monologues at a red dot.
Yeah.
And I remember one time all the kids, so the young actors are around me, they're all on the TV show that he hosts, they're dancing on it, singing on it. And I'm like, hey there guys and gadgets. And I freeze, totally freeze. And if it wasn't for one of those kids being my understudy, who was like, gave me the line after about what felt like forever, probably 20, 30 seconds, But I was mortified. And then I spent the whole show thinking about that, started stuffing other things up. The next night I get out, I'm thinking about last night. So I'm not present. My mind is cast back to a little trauma moment. And this happens to lots of actors. Yeah, repetition does funny things to our heads. But it played into my fear of public failure, something chronic. I felt so much shame, so much unworthiness. It almost gave a green tick and like a positive affirmation of my already limiting self-beliefs about me.
But you were at one of the premiere.
It doesn't matter.
Show. Okay.
It doesn't matter. You know, I know a lot of people with a lot of extrinsic or materialistic wealth who still feel very incomplete. You know, no amount of zeros in your bank balance or the bigger house or the better car or the better job or the better role in a musical in a better part of the world will ever fill you up if you aren't intrinsically full. And so I got some bad news 3/4 of the way through the concert about my father. It was the first time I found out my father had cancer. Struggled through the next few weeks. Leave the contract.
So that was crack. That was where you were like, I can't do this.
10 years later, I did that again in Les Mis.
Really?
Left the contract early because of my dad's health.
Oh, shit.
Both times, I mean, I was burnt out in Les Mis, but Hairspray, I was a wreck. I wasn't a wreck in Les Mis. I was much more aware. I was like, there wasn't fear around it. This was a decision of love. I knew what I needed. I knew what he needed and my family needed. Let's go. But Hairspray, oofed. And so I took time off. I started working as a PT. I knew that this was affecting my marriage. I wanted my marriage to work out. And ultimately, once I hit 2014, 15, or maybe early 15, I was like, I've got to get back on stage.
Yeah.
I've got to get back on stage. It ultimately ended my marriage. But I got back on stage, did a production of something called Blood Brothers, then into a production of Cats. And
sounds like your marriage was on borrowed time anyway.
Yeah, we were struggling. We've been struggling for a while, and we weren't evolving together. And then it's taken us a number of years to become really good mates again. Because ultimately we know that like there's love and there's care and there's affection, but we're not supposed to be together. You know, and
sure.
that's okay. That's life.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had to work through a lot of that stuff, and I felt like the way to work through that stuff was more extrinsic stuff.
More what?
Extrinsic stuff.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I started a fitness business, and yes, we were doing fitness. We were doing sort of functional fitness ahead of the game, but I was getting jacked and I was so into my body to try and feel like I'm enough.
Yeah.
My abs made me enough. My pecs made me.
I've heard that.
You know, and it was just another drug.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
It was another drug, and it we'll get to it, but it took me a while to work out the wounds.
Yeah.
To really work out the wound.
Yeah.
And what was going on behind the mask.
Yeah.
So that's what's taken us to 2015.
So yeah, what techniques did you undertake to figure it out and get back into a place of passion and ability to actually create?
I think it was already in there. I just knew that I had to serve, my passion. I love being out on stage. I didn't know whether it's validation or whether it's, creativity. It's a blend of both. It's definitely both. And this role in Cats came up, and I was like, auditioned for it and brought in some song to the audition. Didn't really care about it. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't. There was definitely non-attachment. One of my best auditions ever. And they were like, no, not that song. You should know this. They started playing Maria from West Side Story, sung it. They're like, yep. And it was just basically like part of the course, like done. And so did that.
So West Side Story, the time in West Side Story helped you smash your interview for Cats?
No, it just, it just meant that I knew a song really well.
Yeah, I mean,
and they're like, they wanted someone who could sing a big operatic high note.
Yeah.
Tony has to do that. They picked the part of the song where it goes to that. The audition piece I brought in was pretty whatever.
Yeah.
And when I sung that, I thought, okay, great,
Yeah.
get it. So that was sort of, that sort of rekindled my passion for it.
Yeah.
On that show, I met Delta Goodrum. And Delt's, I remember her saying to me, she's like, why doesn't anyone know you? I'm like, maybe that's the weirdest compliment I've got. And she's like, you're like a Hugh Jackman, Anthony Warlow type, you sing so well, like you got all this charisma, like why haven't you done an album? And I'd had conversations with Sony Music before. After doing West Side Story, I'd had some meetings with them. Ultimately, it didn't eventuate into anything. And I didn't believe in myself fully. Yeah. After uni, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go and do this. But there was always clearly some deeper part of me that didn't believe in myself. And
where do you think that came from?
Well, we'll get to the wound in a second.
Okay.
She sort of lit a firecracker. And just like having someone who'd had so much success who you really respect go, you should be out there in the music world. You should be like, we need to hear this voice. I was like, okay. Soon as Cats was done, I got in touch with a guy called John Foreman. And John has been on, the music director of Australian Idol and the Carols every year. We were put together by Sony Music that didn't eventuate into anything. I said, John, I'd like to re-explore the idea of doing an album together. And we did. And it was a great album, had lots of success. It went to number 1 on the classical charts and it was a great album. It was pop songs that I translated into other languages, re-orchestrated. And it was a lot of fun to do and I had a great time doing it. And it was creatively fulfilling and I just really enjoyed it. The thing about doing an album is you don't fear failure. You're just exploring it. You're being creative, being imaginative, coming up with stuff. You're in the recording studio so you can do it 30 times until you feel like it's right. And off the back of that, about 6 months after it came out, I was doing a show called Beautiful, Carole King musical. And that had finished. I went over to Italy. I get a call on my mobile. I'm in Tuscany. It's John. And we have a bit of small talk. And he said, hey, I am the creative director and musical director, conductor of Australia Day Live, which is a concert we do on the forecourt of the Sydney Opera House every year. It's like a pop rock concert. But every year we like to pay homage to the Opera House and have someone sing a big classical song. Would you sing Nessun Dorma? And Nessun Dorma is like that big famous Pavarotti aria song. And I sung it in the 10 tenors, but not for a long time. It's very technical. It's the song that just evokes so much within people. And
can you give us an example?
Nessun dorma, nessun dorma, ba 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 dun 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 dun. So yeah, when he said that to me, like I could feel like the rush of adrenaline, cortisol, every bit of fear within me wanted to say no. I was like, yes. And I don't know why I said yes. Some intuitive part of me, I actually feel like it was, when I think of it from a spiritual place, it was like something divine came through me and spoke for me. Because if I had opportunities to sing on live telly before and that fear of public failure was way too strong. I just balk or I get sick before it or anything I would stop it from happening. So to make my singing debut on TV, really, other than singing an anthem, doing that was pretty full on. And there were times, like I just went, I'm going to get down to work on it. Got down to do the preparation, to do that stuff. And there were times I reckon during it, I physically felt ill, just in preparation for it. And then my confidence grew and then my trust for it grew. I knew I'd sort of mapped it out for my voice and it was like muscle memory. And by the time I got out there, I was feeling so free and confident. And yes, there was the nerves, but I was like, I'm going to fucking smash this. And I remember there's this musical interlude right towards the end, the choir kick in. It's before the very big last note. And I was like, I remember saying to myself, this is your life. You are alive in this. And I remember holding that last note for an eternity. And that one moment changed the course of my life. John helped change the course of my life. I'm forever indebted and grateful to John. Because he saw something in me, like Delta saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. And the footage of that found its way to the casting directors of Phantom over in London. Even like Andrew Lloyd Webber saw it, and immediately they were like, next time he's here, we want to see him. I got on a plane and...
Well, funny that, I'm actually here tomorrow.
Literally, within it next week. And it started that whole journey, and less than 6 months later, I was playing the Phantom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how it happened.
Yeah.
And I know you want to talk about the wound, and it was Phantom that did it. So I'm doing Phantom, I've landed. It's like that feeling of doing opening night was like landing in what I've dreamt about all this time, and also taking off in a way. And then that feeling washes off. And I was like, I'm still the same me. I still have those same limiting beliefs. I still have that same imposter syndrome. I still have my own inadequacies. I still have the same neuroses. I still have all the same stuff is still there. It's all behind this mask that when I go out there, I was having a great time, but I still felt those things about myself. Over the first 2 months, I started to get very fatigued, extremely fatigued. I would wake up like I was already hungover, having a hangover. And then my voice started to go. So I saw the ENT, and he took a look at my cords, like, they're fine. Saw the crystal around my neck. And he's like, will you be up for some more esoteric style of treatment? And we both are like, obviously. And I remember going to see this woman. Jake is her name. Near Victoria Station, little side street, back of a yoga studio. She had this little rooms. And she asked me, what's the nucleus of the character for you? Where are you creating him? What's the core of him? I'm like, he's the abandonment. This guy is born with a deformity. His mother takes one look at him, says no, casts him on the doorstep of a circus and doesn't want to have anything to do with him. He's got serious abandonment wounds. And she just gives me this glint, like, this is going to be easy. We go into a hypnosis, and I get taken back to a time that I'd never thought about since. I'm 6 years old. I'm at after school care. I'm looking out the window, and the guy, whose name was Guy, who runs after school care, is next to me. It's after 7 o'clock. My parents are over an hour late to pick me up. And I just start bawling, like purging, crying, screaming, crying, like every bit of unloved child. And my parents were so loving, so supportive. But they were not good with time.
Yeah.
So the love language I needed was quality time.
Okay.
And the love language they wanted to give was every opportunity in the world. Send our kids to private schools. They're
Gifts.
Children of Holocaust survivors. It's gifts in a way, in some way. Acts of service or whatever.
Sure.
They didn't have anything growing up. So they worked their butts off. They took us off to give me and my sister every opportunity that they didn't have. And so that meant working late and whatever. As a 6-year-old, I don't get that. I just get that my parents, I'm alone here in an after school care with a strange man, and they're late to pick me up. And so I'm just bawling. I could leave very exhausted, wake up so fresh. Never again do I feel that hungover, being hit by a Mack truck feeling. And I played that role 350 more times. But it taught me that my wound was abandonment.
Interesting.
Yeah? And if anyone's seen Better Man, the Robbie Williams film, you know that he's got an abandonment wound from his father. And it leads to, as it did for me, an incessant need for validation, to be seen, to be heard, to be noticed, to be loved. Yeah. So where do I wind up? On stage. It's the most obvious place for someone with that wound to wind up. So there's the wound, but and the manifestation of that wound, and there's the gift. Because the wound is the place where the light enters, as Rumi said.
Yeah.
Or behind the wound is the gift, as Carl Jung says. So I learned I did some real work on this in COVID. Can't go out, go in. And I did some serious, deep men's work, very, very deep men's work with Asha, with a company called The Fifth Direction, which I implore men to look at, because men have so many wounds wounds that manifest into so many savage ways, whether it's abusive to themselves or to others. I did my meditation teaching in that time. I used COVID and losing the job of Phantom or, you know, whatever, as a time for deep inward work, the deepest I'd done. I've been meditating for a few weeks, but it got deep. And I really got into that space of consciousness and awareness and understanding my shit and feeling into that shit. And then so performing, so from that gift, knowing that the gift is to communicate and to connect, to sing, I then realized that my purpose is really to heal people. So in my wound is actually the purpose of healing, which sounds paradoxical, but is actually so common. And so now it's changed my whole relationship with, do I not have that wound anymore? Have I sewn it up and, you know, no, of course it's still there. But how I see it and notice it, it's actually not about healing it. We're this obsession with our traumas and healing all our trauma. I can't start dating until I'm all healed, or can't do this, I'm doing healing, I'm healing. It's not actually about healing. It's about understanding in an embodied sense so that you have awareness of it, so you can see how it plays out and you can choose to not let it play out that way. You know, like I'm not going to not be abandoned by my parents for that 1 hour as a 6-year-old boy. That happened. But I've seen the result of how it manifests and I want to change the way it manifests.
Take the positives and
take the
reject
positive.
the negatives.
So the wound is the manifestations of them, validation, need, you know, incessant need for love, be seen, be heard, be noticed. That still happens. I catch myself on social media all the time with that. Like you go, oh fuck, they only got that many likes. I'm like, oh, there it is. And rather than going, fuck you, you failed again at your wound, go,
get him next time.
That's the stuff. That's the stuff. And you giggle about it. And then the next time you go, oh yeah, the like stuff. And then a month later you play it again. And this is life. It doesn't just fix and then I'm fixed. It's you play in the game of it and you stop attaching yourselves to being identified with the wound, with the singer, with the phantom. The less identification you have with it, the more you begin identifying as a space behind it all that witness it.
With it.
And then you're playing with it.
Yeah, I've been really liking...
So I know that was a bit of a spiel.
No, it's fine.
But you get a sense, I know you were interested in where that wound was, and that's where it is, and they're the lessons I learned from it.
Yeah, there's an idea that I've been saying quite regularly at the moment, because I'm, you know, moving into a different direction, moving into more media stuff, like moving out of previous world, and it's and things go wrong all the time. Like, you know, our camera stops randomly, but it's like I keep saying to myself, and I've said it to other people, it's like, well, you know, today was kind of rough, but I'll go to sleep and try again tomorrow. And it's just
that's it.
It's like, oh,
and that's all you
go to sleep and try again tomorrow.
That's all you can do, and not get hung up on it. And like, there's no part of me that's witnessing that thing happening and going, Adam's shit at podcasting. You know, oh, Adam's a failure. Or Adam's I'm just going, okay, we'll put a new SD card in and keep moving. Like, we have the hang-ups more than anyone else has the hang-ups.
We put all this meaning and these ideas and stories behind it.
So many stories and the assumptions about how you think they would have felt, and all this. It's just mishigas. You know, in Yiddish, that's what it is. It's just nonsense. It's just madness. What that time in COVID really taught me, or what I began to really cultivate, and this is where my idea of behind the mask really stemmed from, is this space. I've been playing this role, which quite literally puts on a mask. And in Latin, the word for mask is persona.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah. So it's this persona we're putting on. We're all out there playing roles. And we become obsessed with the roles we're playing. We become addicted to the roles we're playing. Whether the role is podcaster, whether the role is phantom, whether the role is mother, whether the role is corporate exec, whatever. And we become so defined by them and our worth becomes attached to them. And we're so addicted to them, you know? And in the addiction, the identification, it's like they're rusted on, these masks. So when we remove them, so it's just so beautiful that it took Phantom, a guy that literally wears a mask, to teach me about who I really am behind that mask. And that's when I started working with Ben Crow through that time. But Ben taught me about the best version of my authentic free self, the characteristics and traits but really it was about getting even beyond that to a place of expansive consciousness. And our consciousness, for some people, it's the size of an acorn. For some people, it's the size of a basketball. And if you're really working in the spaces of Buddha consciousness or Christ consciousness or a deeply spiritual prophet-like person, it's the expanses of the depth of the ocean. And every human has the capacity to expand their consciousness to be that big, so that the ego or the identification of a role or your persona is an acorn comparatively to that.
Yeah.
And so when you are operating a space that is that big behind the space of all this, of course you're going to play with it.
Yeah.
Of course you're going to get...
It's like, oh, isn't that
it's
cute?
like, yeah, there's a cute little role I'm playing.
Yeah.
And this is the real game of life that I've been involved in for about 5 years. And that is what's changed me. And actually, I've had my best career in those.
Really?
Of course, because the less I attach myself to there's a great quote from the Bhagavad Gita, which is a great spiritual text that I think everyone should read, Hindi text. Do not be identified as the actor or by the fruits of your actions. I was caught up for the whole time. I still get caught in the traps of it because I'm a fucking human. But the more we can non-identify with that. So I'm playing Jean Valjean. I'm not defined as Jean Valjean. This is as impermanent as clouds in a blue sky. It'll come into my life. It'll arise for a while. I'll do it. And then it'll leave. And some other dude will come and play that role. Yeah. He'll do his thing. And that's it.
That's it.
Yeah. So this is the biggest life change for me, is actually about non-attachment to identification and playing in the realm of awareness and consciousness. Yeah.
So you briefly mentioned, the next generation or the next person that will come and do these roles, and it's just like a continual cycle.
It's a cycle. It's been going for 39, 40 years.
Yeah, for
sure. So I'm one of, 50, 80, 100 guys who've done it. And it's beautiful to be etched in history. It's beautiful to be the only Aussie to ever play the Phantom in Jean Valjean in London. Yeah.
Wow.
That's a beautiful thing, right? Yeah. I won't be forever. Sure. There was some other Aussie will go and do it. It's a beautiful thing and something I'm immensely proud of. Yeah? I'll be just as proud when I'm the 3rd, 4th, 20th Aussie.
You're my 3rd favourite Aussie. John.
Because what I think about when I think about those roles is not, I'm the first Aussie. I think about that moment in his Act 1 soliloquy where I transcended myself. And I sort of don't remember it because time stands still, but I remember coming off and the feeling of it and going, oh my God, I was so free. And really, when I come back to what we're talking about identification and not being identified as the actor and playing in the realm of consciousness and everything we're talking about today about not enoughness and whatever, we're all just trying to get free.
Really. Gave me shivers.
That's where the aliveness of life is happening.
Yeah.
And we find it in pure present moment awareness. But that freedom is and the crux to it, the double trap is don't get addicted to trying to get free.
Yeah. Because the more you grab onto it, the less it's a paradox.
Yeah, it's a constant paradox.
Yeah.
But it arises, the freedom arises. And those moments, I'm like, oh my God, this is magic.
The flow state.
It's flow state. And I see it with athletes all the time. I always hark back to Federer in his heyday, just because it was so beautiful and graceful.
Yeah.
But you could just tell when it's quite literally has the ball on the string.
Yeah, he's just having fun with it.
He's just having fun with it. He's playing.
Yeah.
He's literally playing. Yeah. As I was, I'm playing a role in a play with music.
Literally playing.
It's called what did Shakespeare call his actors? Players. Yeah. He's a tennis player. So the more, probably the more play I find in it, the freer I get.
Cool. So I want to ask you one more thing, and then we'll go into some more philosophical thoughts.
Yeah, because we haven't touched that. We haven't had any philosophy.
No, we've had a few, but I've got a few more I'd love to explore. But
just quickly though, I love doing this podcast. If it's positively impacted you in some way and you would like to support us, please subscribe. By subscribing, it allows us to build a much bigger base of listeners, which results in better guests, better production, and a better show overall. Alternatively, please take a look at the affiliate links of the products that I use and love in the comments below and consider purchasing using those links. They'll give you a discount and they'll also provide the podcast a small kickback. These are two very easy ways for you to support us as we continue to grow the podcast that we absolutely love doing. Thank you for your support, and now back to the episode.
So for somebody with a similar dream to you now, just finishing up, moving into the career path, we've tapped on some specific ways to approach developing the skills. Mm-hmm. And then we've thought about some mindset.
Yep, and some spirituality.
And some spirituality around it, around like the art, the value of the art as a whole. But what would you do if you were starting again now with the prevalence of social media as a driving factor of a lot of people's successes?
I get caught in the social media trap too.
Yeah.
So it's just as prevalent for me as it is for young artists.
It's a tool.
How
would you use a tool?
I think that is the most beautiful way to phrase it. I think you've just said it there. It's a tool.
It's a tool.
To see it as a tool. And to see it, a tool is a vessel, right? To see it as a vessel in no different to the way you see the role you play in a show, as a vessel for the writer and the music and maybe the divine to pass through you into an audience. So use this as your stage.
Yeah.
Use it as a vessel. Don't be attached to it. As in the traps that I get caught in, everyone gets caught in. Did they has that cute girl that I've got a crush on, where's she in my stories? We all play this game.
Yeah, for sure.
So to use it as a vessel to share your stuff and express your stuff without being attached to the outcomes of the stuff.
Yeah.
Without being going, shit, that one got, 2,000 views, that one got 20,000. I've got to do more of that. Yes, listen to your audience, but I think it can do our heads in. If you're sharing your stuff purposefully, if you're sharing stuff that's true to you, that's authentic to you, that you're passionate about, if you're playing in that, I lose followers all the time. I lose followers because they're going, oh fuck, he's on about meditation, and they even write to me. They go, oh, I want more music. You're talking about meditation now, and I'm like, sure, unfollow me. It's an extension of you.
Yeah.
I have. How do you feel about that stuff?
Well, yeah, I'm thinking about something specifically around the persona thing, because I've heard it multiple times now. I did Tony Robbins' seminar, and he spoke about just all these affirmations and creation of Tony Robbins. It's who you see in front of me, who you see on this stage right now is a manifestation and creation of me. I made this person who is in front of you. This is not Tony. This is Tony Robbins. I am something else, right?
He's playing a role.
Second person. David Goggins talks about, I went into the depths of hell. I went to the depths of my internal psyche, and I'm this little bitch, and I do nothing, and I'm useless, and blah, blah, blah. And then from the depths of hell, I created Goggins. And Goggins is not David Goggins. They're different. And then it's that comes out. And then another friend of mine, he's a pro bodybuilder, same deal. He's I created, his name's Jake Abel. So he's I started putting videos out under Jake Abel Official. And ever since then, I'm who the fuck is Jake Abel Official? Who is that person? How does he act? And he's I created that. And it's the same thing over and over again.
So as long as you can see it as a role.
It's a separation of you and a persona, and then that persona can be the front facing for your social media.
Yep.
And that persona is just a role being
And if
played.
you see it as a role, and if you're not attached to it, and you're not identifying it, and you know that it's a role, then giddy up.
Yeah.
If you start to feel like your worth as Josh Piterman or as Tony Robbins is governed by what is happening on that platform, look the fuck out.
Yeah. Because what can get given to you can get taken away very quickly.
Yeah, but you will be on a anxiety, stress spiral, and you will be so disconnected from who you really are because you're lost up thinking that who you are is that, and you're not. So you've got to continually see it as a role that you play. Yeah. And I know lots of people with big followings, and they aren't what we see on the camera.
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, or on the grid.
Yeah. It's a tool. It's a tool. So, conscious of time, moving into some more general stuff.
Yeah.
What's the biggest thing over the last 2 years that you've changed your mind on?
Play
more. Have fun with it. Cool.
Yeah. I've gone through some shit. I had a mega vocal injury during Les Mis. I got forearmed in the throat in a fight scene, in a rehearsal.
Damn, that's annoying.
Yeah, cracked my thyroid cartilage.
Out of all the things that could possibly happen.
I mean, the universe operates in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
But there is a beautiful theory around the feather brick in the train, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of Phantom, the Australian run, which was immediately after COVID, I was asked to go and do Jean Valjean and Les Mis. I was pretty tired after that. You know, I didn't have the Mack truck feeling of tiredness, but a level of, I could do with a month off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And instead I got on a flight pretty much straight away and started rehearsals. So the universe is like, I felt the feather of, I should really take a break here.
Yeah.
The universe said, okay, well, you ignore that feather, here's a brick. And there's a brick to your throat. You know?
So it wasn't the truck.
There wasn't a truck yet.
Okay.
And then I did continue the run, and then had some stuff going on at home with my dad's health around the time I was negotiating a recontract. And it was like, don't worry, just continue. My parents would never say, don't pursue your dreams, whatever. I didn't feel right. I was having some heart troubles. But I listened to them. Intuitively, I knew it was wrong. I took the money and I took what I thought, would make someone else happy, make the producers happy, whatever, but it didn't make me happy because I knew that something wasn't right with Dad. 6 weeks into the continuation of the contract, get a call that his cancer, that he's been struggling with for a decade, had traveled to his brain.
Okay.
And I was done. It broke me. I was out there each night singing, crying through, I'm playing a dying father. Really, that's Jean Valjean. Thinking about whether my father's, am I going to be here?
Life is full of ironies, isn't it?
So art's imitating life all the time. It's simply that role is a very spiritual role, and I was into the depths of my spirituality when I got cast in it. Like everything it's constantly, you're manifesting a mirror of yourself, That's life. So I just upped and left, severed the contract.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Jeez, what happened with your father from there?
His condition has remained sort of stable.
Oh wow.
Drugs are helping, but it's the best decision I ever made.
Yeah.
It was really the best decision I ever made. I didn't need to go any longer. But what happened was, as soon as I made the decision, I needed to take a little break from London. I go out surfing. And I wipe out, and my board flings back, smacks me in the throat. Now, the ENT had said to me, keep away from anything that could possibly, just for a while, maybe a couple of years, damage some nerves to my throat, to my vocal cords. I didn't know that. It took about 6 months to work that out. I just couldn't sing.
Yeah.
I got back for like one more final show with heaps of cortisone. But my voice felt so weird and funky and whatever. And it just, some days would work, many days, 10 days, 14 days wouldn't work. I was like, what the hell is going on? But ultimately what was happening is that my left vocal was atrophying. So it's like, they should meet like this. One had like a well in it. And so it couldn't meet. So it couldn't, vocal cords meeting is what creates sound when you pass air through it. And yeah, it was just crazy. So I ended up having a couple of surgeries in 24 and ultimately sing again. Like modern science is ridiculous. They filled it with Juvederm, which is like the filler you put in your chin or your tuchus, and to pump it up. Yeah, so ultimately I had these surgeries and I come back singing and it's all great, but I needed some time off.
Yeah.
Clearly, my universe is like, there's the truck.
Chill. Yeah.
There is the truck or the train or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I like chill. I started doing more writing, podcasting, doing other things, coaching, and it was a life shift I needed.
Yeah.
Because I actually ended up like, it took me to get a train that like, it's like you can't do the thing you do to listen.
Yeah. But you knew it was the right thing at the time, like but long before that you needed to stop this for a while?
I knew halfway through Les Mis doing it, I go, I don't need to continue this.
Yeah.
I've done this, I know what this role is, I've lived this dream. It's fantastic. It's not everything I dreamt it would be. The view from the top isn't always the view that you expect. Especially if you had a huge romanticized ideas of what it was, which I did with Les Mis because it was the show that got me into musical theatre. I thought it would.
Yeah.
But it's heavy lifting. That role is hard.
Yeah.
It's a marathon.
Yeah.
I didn't need to continue, but they threw really good money at me, and
So
I chose extrinsic measures rather than intrinsic measures.
Yeah.
And internally, I knew that it wasn't right, and I pushed against it. And then stuff in life, family stuff came up, and it was like, it's just. And I didn't have fear around it. When I decided to leave, there was no, fuck, what's this going to do for my career? Are they going to cast me again? It was just, this is so much more important than a stage show or my career, whatever. This is like my father. And then I realized when I got home how bloody burnt out I was.
Yeah.
I was cooked.
Yeah.
I got so sick, and it probably took me like 3 or 4 months to just like come to.
Yeah. Shit.
Because we just go.
The feather, the truck, the train.
The feather, the brick, and the train.
Feather, the brick, and the train.
It's a great one, isn't it?
Yeah, I've heard that before.
And everyone has their version of that. Like,
I've got a
people
version of
listening.
that. Yeah.
What's yours?
Oh, a story for another day, but it's
we all have it.
Yeah, it's an interesting one for sure.
Yeah, because if we're arrogant enough to think that we're not coalescing with something bigger than ourselves, then I think we're very limited. It's very arrogant to think that.
Yeah, for sure. So, what's the kindest thing anyone's ever done for you?
I think it happens anytime someone asks, how are you?
Like, really, how are you?
That how are you that makes you breathe or take a different breath or changes your flow of breath. You know that how are you?
Yeah.
Where you get to stop and it might be, you know what, I'm really good, or thank you so much for asking. Do you have space to actually let me answer that question? Yeah. And when they ask it in the way that you know. It's a good
question to ask before you like unload on somebody.
Well, we don't need to emotionally fire hose on everyone. I mean, I've done it today because it's a podcast. But you sort of know when someone asks, like, the difference between how are you and, hey, how are you? Yeah. Like, you know the tone, like. Yeah. But I think it's one of the most beautiful things that we can ask.
And how's that act of kindness impacted your decision making in world?
It's made me ask it more.
Sure.
It's made me care more around, like, more about being a part of alleviating suffering.
Sure.
And I mean, I try and do as much charitable service that I can do. There's a few different organisations that I'm involved with, and I use my voice for that, or I use my time for that. And or the homeless guy out the front of my Coles, like, that basically has a per diem, a weekly per diem from me, because I love him. Because I love him because I love him as a soul. Yeah, Taz, I just love him. Yeah. I think all of this is, and my own suffering, which is really suffering of the mind, has just led me to go, I need to be a part of alleviating suffering in some way. I know that music does it. I know that every time I get on stage, it is healing, but working with people or having the podcast or whatever, like, I cared very deeply about lifting the burdens of people's lives off them in some way, or getting them to see themselves behind behind the mask of those burdens. And you know that inherently in alleviating suffering, you're never going to alleviate all the suffering in the world.
Yeah.
But in the gestalt of it all, in the understanding that everything is connected into a whole, every part is connected to a whole, just by playing a tiny little part, it affects the whole.
Yeah.
Just play so whatever you can do to alleviate numbers of suffering. And I think from a spiritual perspective, the reason why we feel good, when we work at feeding the homeless or singing for the old people's home or at the hospital or whatever, is because from a soul's perspective or a consciousness perspective, where we're all one, really, and we can get to that level of consciousness where you feel like you're just another soul in a spacesuit, as Ram Dass would say, soul in drag. Love Ram Dass.
It's great.
You're alleviating your own suffering when you help alleviate another's suffering.
Yeah.
There's an inherent part of you, like that's the fulfillment, because you carry at some level their suffering in the gestalt of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it's funny that our brains are wired to get pleasure molecules.
Like hedonistic.
Like we get pleasure from the act of helping others. Like it's literally built into our core wiring.
And if we get back to that idea of love and fear, I think alleviating suffering in some way, shape or form is the deepest act of love that we can offer. It's love in service of another being.
Love in service is that's a good way to put it. It's a good way to put it. If you could only recommend one book for someone to read for their whole lifetime, what would it be and why?
I should say, Come Wait for Me and Get Behind the Mask by Josh Piterman.
You can say that. Say whatever comes to you.
I think the 4 agreements have been really profound for me. Power of Now, mentioned that. You know what? It takes some unfolding and unpacking, but I don't know if you ever read Women Who Run with the Wolves.
No.
Clarissa Estairs, great book. I think that's her name. And then a book by Robert Bly called Iron John. And I'd say Iron John is a sort of mythic masculine book. And Women Who Run with Wolves is the feminine mythic book. And I love myth. I love storytelling. I mean, I'm a storyteller. But I think stories are great because these authors explain the meaning of those stories and how the depths of those stories play into our psyche and our life. It actually goes beyond psyche. I think a really great story speaks to your soul. It speaks to your bones. It speaks to so far beyond the limiting confines of our intellectual minds that it seeps into embodiment quicker than anything. And so, yes, those 2 books, those early books I said were great, but I found a lot in reading Iron John and Women Who Run with the Wolves.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And if you could only know the absolute truth to one question, what would it be?
Do the Western Bulldogs win the premiership in 2025?
Put a bet on it today.
Do we? Do we have another premiership in a decade? I don't know. A lot of people go, "What's the meaning of life?" and all the. I think I've worked that one out for now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I have. Because I think it's different for everyone. I don't think there is this is the meaning.
But what is the meaning of life?
For me, it's to play in the aliveness of life, to be fully alive in the present aliveness of it, because that's where life is happening.
What does that look like? What's an example
This
of that?
is that. This is that. Yeah? Being of service is that. Being purposeful is that. Being loving is that. fully alive in everything that you do, so that you're bringing the deepest nature and the essence of who you are into what you do. Yeah, that feels as meaningful as anything.
Great. It's a good place to end it. So is there anything you're excited about that you'd like to let the listeners in on at the moment?
Excited. I'm excited about footy season.
Yeah.
I love the footy. Well, like my stuff is always, I feel excited by it, whether or not other people do, I don't know. I don't have anything specific other than, nothing specific.
Okay.
Just the joy of it all.
Sounds good. And where can people find you if they're interested?
Do you want my address? I'm selling the place.
Whatever.
They're just
Go on realestate.com.
You can find me on Instagram at Josh Piterman, 1T, 1N, or at Go Behind the Mask. Yeah.
Great. And what's one lesson that you'd hope that everyone listening can take away from this conversation?
The more you play with who you really are behind the roles that you've been playing almost forever because you were conditioned into them, the more blissful your life becomes.
Great. Josh Piterman, thank you. Appreciate your time, appreciate your energy.
Thanks, brother.
Love it. And for anyone that's made it to the end, please give the podcast a subscribe, a rating if you've liked it. Let us know your comments.
Massive rating. The highest possible rating. Reviews.
At least one. At least 1 star.
5 out of 5 stars. Great reviews. Adam's the legend.
Thanks, brother. Cool.